Hi, writers and readers. How are all of you doing today? It is such a nice day. We've had such nice weather, finally, about time. Although we're supposed to get snow tonight, so we'll see. Anyway, I hope you've had a really good weekend. Mine has been super productive. I have some major things that are going to be coming up very soon. Whoop, my dog, sorry. She got excited to see all of you, just as excited as I am. Anyway, I have some major things coming up in the future. In exactly a month, I should be able to announce something and on YouTube that it's going to be pretty exciting. So in the meantime, I recently went to the Liberty States Fiction Writers Conference, which if you are in the New Jersey area and anywhere around it, people come from all over the place to attend. It was a really, really great experience. I really can't say enough what an awesome experience it was. Everyone was super friendly. Everyone was interested in networking. There were best-selling authors, New York Times best-selling authors who would take the time to, just answer your questions and have a chat with you. And you'd be sitting at their table during lunch or dinner or breakfast. So I can't really say enough how awesome it was. And the workshops were just full of information. So that being said, I put up a little thing on Facebook that was asking what topic you would like to see the most. And it was tough because I actually got two that were the most wanted, and they were improving author social media and hybrid marketing. So I will be doing both of them. I just did improving author social media for now. And there are a couple others on there. I will get to all of them. I just wanted to know what to start with. So today's is improving author social media. I think you're going to find it really interesting. I have my notes right here. And so let's get started. This is regardless of whether you already have a good platform or whether you're starting a platform. This was really great information. It was by, I'm going to try to pronounce his name correctly. I apologize if I don't. I believe it's Saurabh. It's Sourabh Sharma. So his company is called Fig or Out. There is a reason behind that, and you can look him up at figourout.com. He is also on Instagram and Twitter, and he has multiple accounts, and he was super, super friendly. He answered my questions. Like, I went up and talked to him afterwards. So I will recommend, if you ever see a workshop with him, definitely go to it. He's got excellent tips, and he will talk to you one-on-one to give you advice for whatever you need. So one of the first things he said that I found really important and that I feel should be like the basis of every platform, but I never really thought about it too much, is having an objective, a set objective, written down or something that you know for sure, this is my objective for all of my social media or this particular platform, whatever. And so that will help you answer the question of, if you see something you want to share, but you're not sure if it suits your channel or your platform, you're not sure if people will like it, what the deal will be, look at your objective. This is his advice. Look at your objective, and that will tell you the answer of whether it's going to fit or not. And as someone who's going through a change across multiple platforms right now, you guys are going to notice a change on Facebook, YouTube, everything coming up soon in good ways. I'm going to be sharing a lot of great information with you. But anyway, as someone who's looking to do that, that tip seemed like something I should have known from the beginning, and I really didn't. Honestly, I would just say, I'm an author. I just want to share author stuff, but that's not detailed enough. It's not like a goal. It's not an objective. Having something solid. And I've read this actually since he gave that advice. I've read this in multiple places for having a business and running a business properly. Having a specific goal that you have in your mind for that business is like crucial to having it succeed. And so that makes sense that it would be for social media platforms too. So I really appreciated that advice. And I think it works. It's going to work for everyone, but whether you're struggling with where to go or you're just starting, I think it's really, really helpful. And then he's saying that if you're choosing what social media to be on, because not everyone can be on everything, has the time to do it, maybe it doesn't suit for everything, look at your objectives and your brand and see what are you trying to achieve and what platforms are really going to work best for that. And that can include, he was saying, like, look at your demographics for your business and what you're trying, like if you're a YA author, where are the YA readers at? Where's your teen audience? They're going to be more on Instagram and Snapchat than they're going to be on Facebook necessarily. But if you're going for a different, age range, maybe 30 plus or something like that, maybe there will be more on Facebook. So you might want to pay special attention to that. And I'm not talking about algorithms. I'm just talking about, the basic, demographic, which I thought was also great advice. I tend to, from my own experience, if I'm going to do a Facebook boost, I usually just cover all ages, and just hope to hit someone, but that also costs me more money. So if I'm going to spend $10, let's just say, on a Facebook boost, and I say I want all age ranges, that's spreading my money so thin that I may not reach the people I'm actually trying to reach. So that really hit home with me when he said that it makes a ton of sense. If you're going to do a Facebook boost or something similar, and you narrow that demographic down to the age range that is looking at your website, the age range that is mostly on that platform, things like that, then you're really going to get more of your money's worth. And it makes so much sense. Again, it's another one of those things that once you hear it, you're like, why didn't I know this before? Hi, David and Rebecca. Thank you guys for coming. And I already saw Amber and Joe. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate you coming and supporting me. I'm excited because I have so much information here. And it was, I was telling everybody that if you ever see Saurabh Sharma, that you should go check him out on a workshop if you're able to. He was full of such good information. So I already did the demographic. He was saying that you don't have to be everywhere. A lot of people try to spread themselves thin. There's value to trying to be in a lot of places, of course, but if you're finding that dedicating time to Twitter is paying off, whereas dedicating time to Instagram is really a waste, and you're spending lots of time creating posts and nobody's responding, or you're not getting people interested, then kind of makes sense to say, maybe Instagram isn't so worth the time. Of course, look at what you're doing and who's there and, whether it's the right demographic and all that stuff, but it definitely makes sense. Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, this is my 200th video, and I'm really surprised because I didn't realize it until the last minute. We have a question on the side. And also a comment. Joe says, goals are so important, short-term and long-term. I have a 1-year plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan. Joe, that's exactly what business, they're going to teach you that in any college business course you go to. So that's excellent. And that's exactly what you should be doing. And I feel like a lot of small business owners who don't have a storefront necessarily and can do everything out of their house may say like, well, here's my service and that's it. But there isn't necessarily a plan for growth, expected, what you're going to make, ROI on the ads you put out, stuff like that. So it's exactly what you said, Joe. It's really important. And David has a question. He says, do Facebook ads work at all for books? I would say that everyone's going to have a slightly different answer depending on their experience. So what I'll say to you, David, is when I took out a Facebook ad, it was useless. But when I did a boost, it was good. So I don't know exactly what the difference is, but the ad was literally got like, I don't know, 5 likes after almost a month being out there and almost no interaction. Nobody was interested. I don't know who they say that they were putting it out to, but I felt like I wanted my money back because what are you doing? It didn't seem to be getting anywhere. Nobody I knew was seeing it. It was very strange. Facebook boosts, lots of people have seen when I put that out there. So whatever the difference is, the boost has been worth it for me, especially if it's connected to Instagram. On Instagram, that's really where I saw the most interaction and the most people really clicking through and being interested. That just happened to be for me. So it probably depends on what you're going to put in there. And also with Facebook, just be aware that if you're going to do a boost or an ad, they're really picky about how much text you have in a picture. So try to put no text or extremely little text in a picture when you put a picture up, and put all the text next to it outside of the picture, because they'll just take you down for it. And I can't tell you the frustrations I've had and actually talking to them and saying like, but I'm following your guidelines and here's what you said and here's what my thing is. I've actually had employees there say, I don't know why this isn't working. So just be careful with that and try not to put too much text in your boosts. That's also something that was confirmed through a different workshop that I went to at that same conference. Rebecca says, and a 1-day plan, which should include nap and coffee, so you get at least 2 things done each day. I love it, Rebecca. Yeah, that's Jonesy always has the best advice. Joe says, not to jump ahead, but did he go over what is the next big thing social media wise, or the one that people should be focusing on that is up and coming? That's a great question, Joe. I think somebody did ask that. And I'm trying to see, he was saying that video content is, and I think we know this probably, I think most of us know this, that video content is a big deal. It is still doing really, really well. And being able to have videos and like maybe switching up between videos and pictures will bring in more people. So that's like the type of content, not so much the place. But he was saying that on Instagram, social e-commerce, purchasing directly from Instagram, being able to purchase from Instagram, that kind of thing is a big deal, and it's up and coming and continually growing. Now, I think he said something about you have to have a certain amount of followers to be able to do that, but regardless, he was saying that that is like a really big deal and the next big thing, and it's more and more businesses are catching on to the fact that you can just do business right from that place, and nobody has to go anywhere, I guess. And so that was his one thing he said to look at. But overall, he was saying definitely it highly, highly depends on demographics of who's looking, who your demographics are. And so, yeah, Rebecca said, I usually fail at one of those goals, honestly, but more coffee can cover for the nap. I love it. That's my favorite. Okay, Joe says, of course, the video comment makes me very happy. Yeah, I agree. And you know what? I've noticed that videos across platforms do well. Now, Facebook, very iffy when you do it on a page. You know how Facebook's algorithm is. It's really weird. And so when I do a Facebook video on a page, it's always sort of meh. But if I do it on my profile, it gets lots of views. So maybe it's a matter of doing it on a page, sharing it to a profile. Maybe it's a matter of doing it on a profile, but linking to your website or somewhere else, whatever. But he was saying, like, on Instagram, if you switch it up, I think I already said this, but anyway, video, picture, that kind of thing can be really good. And you're sort of catching everybody who likes both types of content. So that's very powerful. And just having both types, I guess, for people who want to look at a picture and people who want to actually hear you and see you as like a moving person, that kind of stuff. I'm sure he'd have way more detailed information than that. That's my basic understanding. So that was a great question, Joe. I'm glad you asked it. One of the things he mentioned is actually two things: branding and having a consistent theme. Those are things that I struggle with a bit. Specifically, the consistent theme. That's a tough one for me. He was showing some examples of different Instagram pages, just specifically on Instagram, because that's one of the fastest growing networks. And when he was showing what that consistent theme can look like, I was sort of like, I just don't know how to apply this to myself, because I have a lot of things that I want to share. And if I choose an objective, it's tough to share all of them. So that's part of my answer, sharing a little bit less, maybe on Instagram, a little bit more of whatever I'm looking to share on Instagram that doesn't fit the objective elsewhere, but for me to always either incorporate a particular, like, what do they call it, filter or general feel is really tough for me. I have a hard time, especially because I share other people's posts that have like writing advice and then give my take on it. I have a tough time with that, but he was saying that it is a big deal. Like, people want to come to your page to expect a certain look and feel, and to have a certain look and feel associated with you, which is part of your branding. So it makes a ton of sense, and interconnecting all of these things, it makes total sense. So I got to figure that out, guys. I don't know what to do. I'm having a hard time. On my Facebook, I do a lot of Victorian stuff. On my Instagram, I have a lot of, I do haikus and writing advice and positivity. And, but I don't really talk much about my writing or my books. So what purpose is it serving for me to build my fan base or build, connections? Maybe not as much as it could be. So I am sort of reevaluating that at this point and trying to figure out, what could my theme be? How do I work this? What should I be sharing that will achieve my goals and reach and really narrow down that objective for myself. So that's just sort of an example for me of my experience. Thanks, Joe. He's saying I do a relatively good job using each platform. I try, but when I hear what Sarah was saying, I'm sort of like, okay, I have work to do here, and that's absolutely true. And I have to sit down and just sort of do some sketches, do some looking around, do some figuring out, and like, look at my books, look at my, what is my vibe and what are people looking for from me and what's going to make them interested in both my writing and me as a person, so I can meet new people and stuff like that. Yeah. And then Rebecca is saying, do a short video to catch attention and likes that tells the algorithm that they want to see more from you, then they see your post too. That's a really good point. And he was also saying consistency, which, you know, I've heard across platforms with blogging, with Facebook, with Instagram, anything you do, consistency is a big deal. And so he was saying, like, if you really can't, like, let's say you can't post more than once a week on Instagram, he said, as long as you absolutely ensure that you post that once a week and you don't let the ball drop, then, you know, that can still work. But there are ideal amounts of posts, you know, generally at least. Of course, it can change per industry or per demographic or whatever. But he was giving some advice, and I'll share it with you. So he was saying you could have like an editorial calendar where you sort of keep track of what happens on what day and maybe what topics you want to cover, stuff like that. So you know, okay, this blog post is going live on this day and I have a matching Instagram post on that day, stuff like that. And I thought that sounded so organized. I was like, that's awesome, you know, because I don't typically do that. I just sort of go with it and post what I can and try to do daily stuff on Facebook and Instagram. But he had some really great advice. He was saying that a lot of platforms, it's best to post no more than 2 times a day, separated by 6 to 8 hours minimum, which was an interesting one and very true, because I've noticed that if I post twice a day on Instagram or Miraki or something, but I do it too close together, people just lose the last post and don't even look. So I can say that I've noticed that myself. He was saying you could do anywhere from 4 to 7 Instagram or Facebook posts per week, and that's a good average. He was saying that this is a really funny one. He said 10 to 20 tweets a day are good because Twitter, you know, tweets just disappear. And so when he said that, there was sort of this collective mini gasp because 10 to 20 tweets a day sounds like a lot. And he was like, no, wait, you know, that includes retweeting, responding to people, original tweets, sharing your own content, stuff like that. So that's where something like Hootsuite or Buffer that helps you plan these things really helps a lot. So, and he was saying, like, if you can have seasonal or holiday relevance, that's really good. So, you know, posting something that talks about summer and winter, it really depends. Like, if you're going to make it seem like it's summer, but it's actually winter, that might be awkward. So just, you know, watch that. Joe is saying, was Patreon brought up, or is that the commerce you were already talking of? I don't think Patreon was brought up. I don't recall it, and it's not in my notes. So I don't think Patreon was brought up. But maybe that is part of the commerce thing that he was saying. I think he was really mostly talking about Instagram as like the next big thing with the e-commerce on Instagram, where you can just purchase right there. And I think there's something about like sliding up for, what do you call it, stories. I think that's what he meant. But it wasn't brought up, and that would have been a good question. Darn it. David says, I find there are too many platforms to limit myself to Facebook and Twitter. And he would say to you that that's a good idea, especially if you find that your audience responds well there, or that is the demographic you're looking for. So there are so many platforms, and the one thing you don't want to do is spread yourself so thin that you barely have any presence anywhere. And then what's the point, you know? So I just want to, another thing he said about like, what was it called? Consistent theme and stuff like that. He had said that images that look like they belong together are really good. And thinking of Instagram as sort of a collection instead of just random images, a collection that people view as almost like a magazine that they're flipping through or something. That's a really good way to think of it. And again, I have a tough time. I have a real tough time. So I'm going to have to really look at my content and what I share and whether it meets my objectives, helps me reach my objectives. And whether or not, like, I don't think mine's really a flippable magazine type of feel. I'm sure everybody, you know, does a little something different. But yeah, that's one of those things that's tough for me. Again, that's another one that's tough for me. Going back to the branding thing, he was saying that it should be clear what to do next when somebody looks at your profile, when somebody looks at like your Instagram page or something. Like, what are they supposed to do with this? Do they go to your website? Do they email you? What do they do? Sort of why? That makes sense too. I don't have any of that on Instagram. I sort of have, here's like where you can buy my books, but I'm not mentioning my books much. So it doesn't, you know, I don't see the balance in my own stuff too much in that way. I'm trying to do a little bit more. I'm sort of feeling it out. And I think I'm picking up a couple of things that will work for me. So he was saying, of course, the theme, a call to action is important. And that's sort of the thing that he's saying should be clear what to do next. Call to action is super important, especially on Facebook, where you can have pages where you can set it up as having like a sort of a shop there, and you can have them like a call to action be to buy your book, or it could be more like a newsletter, like sign up for your newsletter type of thing. So let me see if they're not. Yeah, he's saying if they're just looking. See, I can't read my own handwriting all the time. I'm sorry. It's a mess. Ooh. Anyway, yeah, I'm a very sloppy writer. So if they're just looking at what's free but not doing anything, I'm sorry. If they're just looking at the feed but not doing anything with it, not going anywhere from it, then that's a lost opportunity. So that's what he's talking about with the call to action, also having to do with branding. And he's also talking about what a big deal ephemeral content is. Now, I had never heard of that term, but what he's talking about is stuff that disappears in 24 hours. So he's talking about Snapchat, he's talking about Instagram stories, Facebook stories, stuff like that. And he was saying that one way to use that is to put like raw types of stuff up there where it's sort of like a behind the scenes. And that is a good way to get to use that 24-hour stuff. And then the rest that you put up that stays, on Facebook, on Instagram, is supposed to be more of like your magazine, your consistent feel. And what was the other word? The collection, like the collection that you're looking at where everything goes together and has a call to action. But then the ephemeral content that disappears in 24 hours is like behind the scenes. So I get that. And I do a little bit of that already. So I think that's I think that's a good way to do it. And then he was saying you could draw attention to, like, if you appeared somewhere, to use that as like a background thing of that as ephemeral content, and then have, how you can save like a highlight. That's it. You can use that also to draw permanent attention sort of there, but have it be more raw or whatever. So I thought that was an interesting thing. And when he was talking about hashtags, I sort of thought, oh, I know everything about hashtags on Instagram, but he did mention some things that I didn't really realize. So it was super helpful. He was saying about geotagging, which is putting where you are. And, like up on Instagram where it has like your name and then it would have your location, even if it's just your state. He was saying how valuable that is because it brings you up in searches where you wouldn't normally be. So if you're just putting writer, am writing, author, whatever, stuff like that, you're not going to show up in Pennsylvania or something, and someone in Pennsylvania might just happen to see you and become interested in your books if you geotag. Also, somebody who's at the same conference as you might not realize, see your feed, see that you're at that conference, and then talk to you or something like that. So there were some really interesting things. He was saying that it's like tangentially relevant hashtags, and putting them in the comments is a better idea. He was saying instead of putting them as part of your post, and he said it doesn't make a difference if you put them in the comments. Like, they're just as findable, just as discoverable. So you don't have to worry about that. But he said it looks a little bit cleaner, and it's a good point. I had been wanting to do that for a while, and I hadn't done it because I was worried that it wouldn't show up in search results if I put it in the comments, but that's not the case. All right, so there's some conversation on the side. Let's see. So this is responding to David's earlier comment about limiting himself to Facebook and Twitter. Joe has said, I think, David, if you mix in another one, Instagram is where you should go. I think authors especially are going to need it. Cover reveals, One Line Wednesday, hashtags, stuff like that. That's true. You can do writing on Instagram as your visual, and a lot of people respond to that. I've noticed on some of the more popular author pages, even if they don't have a book out, when they put like a little line or they put some poetry or something, especially with like a sort of attractive image, that seems to really bring people in and interest them. So let me see. Amber is saying it's all so time consuming though. I find it hard to take time away from working on stuff and doing social media. It's frustrating for me. And David agrees. I feel the same, Amber. I think that you're far from the only one to feel that way. Rebecca is saying in response, I have a cheat sheet, a Word doc for each where I write up posts and things I want to share for each media. Yeah, then make sure it fits and schedule them to post. That way I load up every so often. Yeah, Ember is saying that's a good idea. I agree. What I had done recently is sort of similar, but yours might be more detailed, where I had said, what do I want to share on Facebook? What are some Victorian things that are interesting? Let me try and see, like, list a number of subjects and topics. And that sort of helped. But she's saying I write up posts and things I want to share and make sure it fits, which is sort of also like, you know, what was said in this workshop, where you can look at, does it fit your objective when you write something? Does it fit my objective? Does this topic fit my objective? Stuff like that. And then schedule them. Yeah, that's a good point. And he was also saying, to go along with that, he was saying that you could have a, I think it was what did he call it? A content bucket of content ready to share. So if you are able to work ahead, if you've got that sort of bucket sitting there that you can do something with, and you can actually post it like differently across different places, depending on what the interest is, that's good. And then, so the bucket of content is useful that way. And the way I think I've said in the past for time management and stuff is, normally what I try to do is on Sundays, for example, I'll set a time that I go on Facebook, and I'll say, okay, I'm going to spend however much time scheduling a week or 2 weeks or however many weeks I can ahead. And that way it's all set, and I don't have to like be desperately trying to think of something during the week, which ends up usually not matching what I really want. It doesn't get much attention because it's poorly thought through, you know? So taking the time to do that and having like a set time where you're in the zone and sort of putting together that content bucket is probably very useful. And then Rebecca says, after she gets all that together and she's got it all scheduled, I am interacting and having fun. I can also edit so I don't sound too crazy. Yeah, yeah, that's true. You can put something up that's a little bit insane by accident, just because, you know, typos or last minute things that, you know, sound good at the time, and then, oops, doesn't sound so good once you reread it later. Joe is saying, I like that too, Rebecca. Interacting is such an important part of the algorithm seeing you too. You are excellent at that. Yeah, that is a good point. And recently I learned from a different social media workshop I went to that likes are only worth so much, and they don't help as much to get seen as comments do. Comments get things seen more. And I did notice that with a recent Facebook profile video that I did, where I was talking about my experience with the literary agents that I spoke to last weekend. And that one had a ton of comments on it. And so a lot more people seem to see it. So I can definitely vouch for the fact that comments do a lot more for you than likes necessarily do, in terms of more people seeing what you're putting up. So I'm not, oh yeah. So David is saying he's never looked at Instagram. It is a good platform, Joe. Sorry, David. It is constantly growing. It's a big deal. And a lot of authors are very successful on it. And so maybe if you start out with this advice and have sort of an objective of what you want to do, then everything can match that and you'll be starting fresh from the right place. So I can't read that out loud, Rebecca, but I like the name that you chose. I like that. I like that whole idea. So I think I covered about everything that I wanted to do to relay to you about what I learned. It was some really great stuff. And like I said, some of it was like, how did I not think of that before? But at the same time, once I heard it, I was like, this is important. This is something I should have been doing all along. And so I was really glad to hear it and really grateful to be part of that. So I did leave down below Saurabh's company, Fig or Out, and it's just figorout.com, but I left it down below in case you want to check him out. He's a branding and social media expert. And I also left the link down below for the Liberty States Writers, okay, LSFW, Liberty States Fiction Writers Conference. And there we go. So I linked to their group down below because I had such an amazing experience there. And it was fantastic. Everyone was willing to share information, even if you just walked up to them and said, like, I just have a question for you. I saw you speaking earlier and I was wondering if you could give me advice on. They would just say, yeah, and they would talk to you. So it was really awesome. I definitely recommend it. This would make a great blog post. Oh, thank you, Joe. Yeah, I have a lot more to share. So just to, I'm going to actually be doing a blog post on my editing company's website soon. That is proofpositivepro.com, where I will also be ramping up my efforts on social media and on doing blog posts more regularly. And I'm going to share with you some of the best swag I received at the Liberty State Fiction Writers Conference and why it's the best and what you can take away from it. So that's probably going to be a 3-part series because there are multiple kinds of swag that were very useful in different ways and that you can learn different things from. So I'm going to be doing that over there. And in terms of my next videos, let me just tell you, coming up next, we have hybrid marketing, then a book haul from the Liberty Science. I just went to the Liberty Science Center. Okay, no. Liberty State's Fiction Writers book haul. I got a ton of books. It was something like 14 books. And so I want to share what I got with you because there's a lot of great stuff. Some of it is New York Times bestselling writers. Some of it is other stuff like just self-published, people who have made it big, people who are just starting out. I got loads of different things with different goals and stuff like that. And then I'm going to be doing after that the do's and don'ts at a writer's conference, which is, I think that was Joe's suggestion. So I'm definitely going to do that. And I really appreciate that. It's a really good topic. And then after that, what literary agents are looking for. So that was the voted order that I want to do. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I will be on again next week, Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern time. And I can't wait to see you then. And now you know the order that I'm going to be doing things. So be sure to tune in. I will go make those live streams now so you can bookmark them. So thank you so much. And as always, thank you for spending time with me.